People are going to trickle in. That's fine. We've got about 80 people so far, so we'll get started. Welcome everyone to the XWA Beta Points stage. This is our second stage overall, but our first major stage, really, since we had members of the council and committee join us on 312. Excited to basically not only debut XWing.life for our centralized site, for the XWA, but also to debut the usage of this Discord in terms of all things XWA. So a lot of exciting things to talk about. Of course, this is going to be focused on the points beta. We have our awesome moderators from XWA and, of course, the 2.5 server here in the chat. I will not be able to moderate the chat as well as they will. Just a couple of kind of ground rules, really. One thing is, I don't, and by extension, we don't believe in censoring dissenting opinions and criticism, as long as it's in good faith and it's honest and it's not using violent language or insults. We're not going to be muting or moderating anyone who says, I don't like this. I'm disappointed or whatever. I do think you all should give it a chance, and I do like it myself and think you will like it. But I just want you all to know that I know in the past there have been some issues. Not going to name any names, right? But there have been issues with people getting moderated for just not falling in line. And of course, that's not really where our values are. As long as we are all conversing in good faith and not trying to troll or insult people, we're good. So I just want to I let the moderators know that. I just want to remind you all to just be civil, and we appreciate you all and your feedback. The other thing is, most of this stage is going to be you all talking to us. You can request to speak. We'll have you come on and talk to us, and mostly Ollie, I'm sure, and I ask you to ask just one question. He'll respond, just so we can get everyone a chance to talk. You can, of course, request to speak again, and you'll be able to jump in and ask another question or a follow-up. I will kind of move people in and out of the speakership, if you will, as we go through this. But yeah, Ollie, I'm gonna pass it to you in terms of just the overview of the XWA points, and what are we dealing with here, and what are the topics and themes that we're covering with this points change from you and your team.
All right, so before we get started, I just want to sort of summarize the couple of beats I'm going to be hitting for this. I want to go ahead and have a talk about how the points themselves were started, what was our starting point with them. We had a couple of ideas on the theme of the update and where we want to go. And then I'm going to go down into some specific examples. I'm not going to hit all of them, but there are some things that we do need to mention and we do need to talk about. And yeah, a lot of these will be in the summary that we put out on the XWing.life website as well. But as we know, XWing players struggle with reading. So those of you who are here, good job. You read enough that you found it and you made it here. So yeah, we're now going to go ahead and break some of it down. So I suppose first of all, I've seen a couple of things going, oh, we're back to 2020, we're back to 2021. Well, the whole idea of this update was we needed a starting point. And I think the big thing about the starting point is if you have so many ships, and the extended and the generics are a big part of this update, but we had so many ships that didn't have a point to get to. We needed to get an idea of, okay, where do we balance out the entire game to? So we had a look at the last 2.0 update and went, okay, well, this is okay. There was a lot of stuff being flown. We were kind of just looking for a point where there was a load of ships being flown from the extended area. So we looked at that and we went, okay, well, clearly we need to readjust the power levels a bit. So we went for around 1.3 times that. There was some maths involved, but I don't want everyone to get fixated on that number, because as we move through adjusting points and everything else, some things had to go up, some things had to go down. We know that the 2.0 update wasn't perfect as well, so yeah, we balanced out as we saw fit. So that's the first thing. I mean, the big themes, if everyone has seen Greg's wonderful YouTube video that he put out with the points, seriously, go watch it, it's amazing. But choices. We wanted to force you in the nicest possible way to actually have to make some list building decisions. You can't get all your toys. Sorry, that's when we're saying that. And you have to make some. You can have toys on one ship or other, but you can't have all the toys on all the ships in your list. So that's the whole point. I mean, if you have a look at some examples of that, Kylo is a great one. You can now choose at exactly the same 6-point marker. You can have Kylo or you can have Kylo. Do you want the Whisper? Do you want a Silencer? You can actually have to decide on that one. The other thing that we wanted to do was generics, as well as the extended ships. That was the big one. And getting them back to balance. We wanted to bring some of the generics back to balance. That's a surprisingly hard job. There is a tipping point that you reach with the generic ship that if you're taking 5 or 6 of them, they're useless, and then they're incredibly broken within a very small tweak. So you have to be very, very careful with that. We've attempted to get them into the right place. I'm sure that there are going to be some out there that are better than others. I know immediately people are throwing around, oh my god, you can take 5 Star Vipers and it's going to be broken, it's going to be terrible. Yeah, they're only initiative 2. Yeah, have a go. Have a go. I will say, in terms of ships that we spent a lot of time on, things like the Star Viper, the XWing, surprisingly, very hard ship to play with, balance, and the interceptors. Oh yeah, getting the E-wings back into the game was one of the big things because we know so many people love them, and this isn't just Nick getting his preferential treatment here.
But yeah, you're not going to believe me. I didn't ask about the E-wing at all. I had no role in anything related to the E-wing. Actually, I had no role in almost any of this. Sorry to interrupt you, Ollie. The only thing I'm taking credit for is Soontier getting 1 point for targeting computer. That is the only thing I'm going to take credit for. That's it.
Shall we hit that now? Because there's okay. So yeah.
I'll say one thing really quick as a kind of a disclaimer for folks. This is 2 things, and these are you're gonna roll your eyes, some of you, and be like, "This is obvious," but I need to say it, especially for the recording. We post this later on 312 and share around. But this is a points beta, so a beta means it's not perfect. X-Wing is a difficult game to balance. There are a lot of chassis, a lot of pilots, and when you add scenarios to that, and the what we're using currently, 20-point list building, there are a lot of variables that just won't fall perfectly into place. And the goal of this update, for Ollie's team, is to just get things to a point where there's a lot more that can be played, because we got to a point where there was just a lot of obvious choices and it was boring. And so this is a huge step in the right direction, but it's a points beta, right? So we want people to play and not make a ton of knee-jerk reaction claims without playing and testing, and certainly we're going to be refining things moving forward. Now, Ollie, I'm going to ask you, this is a leading question. Is this going to be, is this system of 20 points for sure 100% definitively going to be the way of the XWA future, or is this a short-term solution for the time being?
So I think the safe answer is we don't know. I would love to be able to give you a idea of where the future is going to lead us. What we do know is that the 20 points was the obvious choice for this update. And I've already had a few people ask me, oh, where's 200? And it's like, guys, in 2 months, I just want to make sure people have an understanding of what's going on behind the scenes here, because I know that you've been like, XWA happened, and then for a lot of people, you didn't really see much for a couple of months. We kind of repointed the entire game in 2 months. That's a lot of ships. If anyone wants to go ahead and count, I'm not entirely sure how many. There's something like there's over 250 pilots, and every single one was looked at. We did a lot in a very short period of time. There is a reason that this is like a beta update. Like, we think this is going to be like a reasonable job. We hope it is. Like, I'm super happy with these, and I'm sure after a couple of days, people are going to find some nasty combos and everything else. But there is a playtest form with this, and there's a reason for that. We did not have anywhere near the amount of time it would take to get a good idea about what the future of the game looks like and where the future points limits are going to be. So I'm really excited to test that out. It's something that we are going to be looking at inside the XWA is, okay, where do we want to go? Like, is 20 and loadout a good system? Is more, like, if you have a look at squad points itself, do you go up to 40? Do you go up to 100? Do you go up to 200? Do you keep loadout? Do you include upgrade point? There are so many options. So we don't want to say to you right now that we're not considering those options, because we are. We're considering a lot of options. But we also don't want to say to you right now that we're definitely going to be doing this or this or this, because there's going to be a good amount of discussion with you as well. Like, this is a community. So before we knee-jerk to anything, we're going to get you guys involved in it. So yeah, I hope that clears up some of the ideas about that.
Mm-hmm. A couple of main things that I know that are starting to get a little bit more specific to this points change I want to ask. again, people, I do recommend everyone here, if you want to ask any questions specifically, go ahead and request to speak, and we'll get to you in order shortly. But Ollie, obviously, it seems like pretty much everything is on the table, quote unquote, when it comes to extended.
Mm.
Can you kind of distinguish between, standard and then what we're doing here with the XWA points, and the fact that like OG Dash is mentioned in the chat here, and things that were quote unquote banned, you can use in XWA points.
Yeah. So with the XWA points, what we've done is we've gone ahead and assumed that everything is legal, because if you go and read, and we've read these documents very carefully. If you go and read the advice on extended, the ban list doesn't exist. Everyone who has been saying, "Oh, I've been to tournaments with ban lists," that's purely TO choice. So your TOs can continue to abide by the ban list laid out by the original game designers. In this case, we assumed that the ban list would exist. And with that in mind, there's two things that I do want to look at, because I've already seen a couple of people notice them. There are two upgrades in the game right now which are impossible to use, and that was intentional. You have Admiral Sloan for the Imperials, and you have Supernatural Reflexes. In the past, those two cards were incredible, and we attempted to bring them back into the game, and they did see quite a lot of time in our testing board. Unfortunately, the ideas that we had to bring them back into the game didn't succeed. These were the only two that we couldn't make work. They were just either too powerful. In the case of Admiral Sloan, there wasn't a points value that didn't break the game. Short of making her making something like a 7 or an 8 point lambda, that was the only thing that was allowed to carry her. She's that good, and I think realistically into the future we may have a look at ways of looking at her card and whether or not we can adjust it back to objective world, because it was designed originally for a game that is very different from the game we have today. It's too good. The other thing is Supernatural Reflexes. It's a very difficult card to balance, and we didn't have the time to do it. So based on that, those two are what I would consider my failures, because I didn't manage to make them work. The other ones that I'm sure people are already panicking about, stuff like Sense and Dial Peaking, Intimidation is back, Trajectory Simulator. I'm quite proud of Trajectory Simulator, actually. I think that one's okay. We've made it cost points. We've made it cost 10 points. Yeah, there is a lot of things that are back in the game, and people will immediately go, I remember that, it was horrible, it's going to be broken again. To that, I would say, please put it on the table. Give it a test. It's difficult to get a new perspective on some of these things, but I do think that we've done a good job of rebalancing them back into the game in a place that I think they'll have their space, but they won't take over everything else.
So my understanding is that philosophically, I think of you, Ollie, personally as more of an AC player, especially with your Worlds run and everything, but I feel like that's a fair thing to say, that you prefer aces, right? But with your philosophy, from my understanding, is you wanted to make the things that had the higher initiative, better pilot abilities that could do more with their power level, that you had to truly pay for them when it came to maybe if you get them a little bit at a discount, but they have very little loadout, versus the more middling abilities you get at a better overall value. Is that an accurate way to describe your philosophy, or do you want to kind of clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, I very much. It was when we had a look at these, and I think some of the X-Wings are really good examples of this, both the T-70 and the T-65, in terms of how we tried to point and balance the pilots there. In terms of, if you have a look at a bracket on a squad point, and I think the 3 pilots that are really good to have a look at here are the, I think you have Luke and you have Corrin, and you also have, what's another 5-point X-Wing? Off the top of my head, let's not use examples. Let's just use like the idea of this. You have a pilot with an incredible ability, Wedge Antilles, for example, Luke Skywalker with the Force. These pilots are incredible, and you can have them. But if you have those pilots, then you don't get as many upgrade points to spend, because you've already spent points on the ability. The ship points are baked into that ability. So you don't get torpedoes. You don't get some of these other things. Alternatively, you could have a garbage ability. There are some pilots out there with really, really bad abilities. They don't work very well, and that's okay. Like, you're going to have good things and bad things in a game. But now those pilots, they're a bit more tempting, because you have a lot of loadout. You can fit a shield upgrade on them. You can fit a torpedo on them. You can suddenly go, oh, but maybe I do want that because this works on my list. And there are some that are kind of in the middle of that, where they have a fairly good ability, they have some loadout, and it's going to be finding where you want that to sit. The other thing on that is also the standard loadout cards. Now, people are immediately going to say, "Oh, Ollie hates standard loadout because he's nerfed them all." I would challenge you on that. I want you to have a look at the game, and actually, we've brought some down, we've brought some up. We've tried to balance the loadouts out a little bit. It just is the case that the wanting to nerf everything a little, we wanted to reduce the power level. It was about 1.5 times 2.0 points at the original, at the top of the game anyway. We've brought it back to about 1.3. So a lot of the best recent cards were standard loadout because AMG like bringing out standard loadout cards, and obviously the new stuff is going to be good because you want to sell it, and that's okay. So those really, really good cards we did bring back a little. But the philosophy that we've taken with a lot of the standard loadouts, especially if there's a pilot that you can choose to have, or like a build your own pilot is how I like to call them. Luke versus Luke's loadout. The amazing Luke at 6 with all of his choices, all of his stuff. He gets torpedoes, he gets free boosts. That's 6 squad points. And actually, I think he's still really good for 6 squad points. Same with Jendon. Jendon is incredible for 8. But you could choose to have a cheaper Luke if you wanted to that doesn't do as much, but you still get to fly Luke. So you now have 2 choices of pilots. Do I want an expensive Luke with all of his toys and build around that, or do I want a cheaper version? Those are the kind of things that we wanted to give players options to do. Now, I know that that does shut down some things, and 1 point Suntir is an example of this, where you have normal Suntir and standard Suntir. But yeah, we wanted to provide choice.
And it's important, I think, to clarify with SLs. This is a number that I'm throwing out there, but if you take all the scenario packs together, I want to say like 10% saw a lot of play, and everything else never got played outside of the scenarios themselves. So, obviously, the access to easy double mods is what made the ones that got played very popular. Jendon, SSP Vader, right, all that stuff. So I think it's just important. It's like, oh, my poor SLs. It's like, well, again, like, let's just think about the few that actually got played. You got the Arcs, you had Tomax, you had Soontir, you had SSP Vader, and a few others, Jendon, right? So, and the idea of SLs is something that XWA, like we, and especially the design team, we want to continue, and we like, especially for access and for newer players and everything, right? But there's a power level issue with the current points, with some of the usual suspects, and I don't mean to speak for you, Ollie, but I know you agree with that, right?
No, and I'd like to, because it just popped up in the chat as well. WASD Click, Aiden Fox for 4 squad points is incredibly efficient. He's really good, but also he's only initiative 1, and this you will see with quite a lot of the things that we've done. I'm trying to bring back a little bit of, because everything was 5 or 6 for the last however many tournaments. I'm trying to bring back a little bit of some of the lower initiative pilots and see what that does to the effect of the game, because the metagame completely changes. You say that I like my aces. I love them. And aces come back when you see more initiative 1, initiative 2 pilots in the game, because they can start to pick on those pilots. So you have efficiency versus aces, and I'm hoping that that does that.
I see there are a few requests. I just asked for people to request. I see 3 coming in. I'm going to get to you in just a moment, I promise. So let's see. I just want to make sure we cover, yeah, I mean, so one thing to piggyback off of what you just said is scenarios still exist. So the combination of, if you have more ships in a list, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to win out on scramble or salvage. There's a lot of factors, but one of the reasons why higher initiatives were so popular is it was so obvious to choose them. And they gamed scenarios more. So I think more variety is going to make scenarios feel different in terms of the weight of a game. Like, there's work to do there, right? We're using the current scenario rules for now. But it's definitely going to be nice to see more I1s, I2s, I3s, I4s. The fact that more than half the initiatives didn't get played much outside of a few. I think that's exciting, like really exciting. I mean, when I did my own unofficial points thing a couple months ago, I really just wanted to try to find a way to get people to play more variety in their lists. And I definitely, looking at everything, I told Ollie this, to confess this earlier. I didn't know the points until this morning. I purposely didn't look at it because I wanted to be right there with everyone else. So being able to see the variety kind of unfold in front of me when I was building a couple of lists for funsies, it was cool. Ollie, anything else before we?
Sorry, just one thing that I was looking at from the chat and everything else. What about Epic? I'm gonna pass on the Epic comments for the moment because I really want to give the stage over to Paul for that one. We want to get Epic working as quickly as possible, and obviously we're going to have to work out some way of balancing Epic into the present structure temporarily. So yeah, we'll see where we go. And yeah, apologies for talking too much.
No, I was about to be like, anything else, and you said you had something else. So no, you're good. All right, so Cloaker, I'm gonna bring you on and invite you to speak. Hello there.
Well, hello, gentlemen.
Good morning, afternoon, evening.
It's great. Coffee and big dreams. So let's talk about the whole dials are sacred philosophy. I'm interested to kind of hear how you approach that from an upgrade and pilot standpoint. It's kind of been the black sheep for a long time. Go for it.
So yeah, the whole dial peaking and sense and everything else, it's something that was super interesting to us from a standpoint of balance, in that I know that when the game got handed over, these were incredibly powerful tools. Honestly, there were broken tools. The bump master, as it was known, the jump master that could look at your dial and then basically block everything because it has a hard one turn and a barrel roll, was incredibly oppressive. And people talking about agency, the fact that it could take away your agency, like you being able to do things, it wasn't fun. And a lot of players didn't find it fun. With the larger amount of ship count in the game right now, and also the changes that AMG has brought in with access to road and also access to the red focus when you bump, naturally being able to block a pilot is less effective. It's still good. Like, you can still take away their ability to do a scenario action or a target lock or anything else that isn't that focus, but it isn't as brutal and punishing as it was completely taking away anything that ship could do. So because of that, we believe in the points that it's okay. We believe it should be accessible again. It's still expensive. Like, a lot of the dial peaking, the sense is 10 points, for example. Informant got a nerf anyway, because you can no longer choose any ship. You can just choose one. That was back ages ago. So we know it's good, but we also believe that it's now appropriately costed so you can play it in the game. And half the time you do know where your opponent's probably going to go anyway. So yeah, it's a lot less of the cat and mouse with the objective game nowadays than it used to be when you were having 3 ships, and if one of them got blocked, then the game was basically over. So we think we've got it into the right spot now.
All said. And hey, Brian, I didn't realize that was you, but shout out to Brian. Thanks for all you do for your TOing. Appreciate you.
100%.
All right, let's jump into our next request here. I know this man, Snaggletooth. Joel, you are invited to speak.
Good afternoon or evening, depending on the part of the world you're in. Ollie, I saw some people talking about Dash and Lebo. Can I talk about my experience playtesting old Dash with the new title?
Yes.
I'm okay with no,
Basically,
because...
Yep, basically yes, short answer. Go ahead.
So, play tested it against some Empire interceptor spam, and the first turn of combat, my opponent and I had already agreed that this was an issue when I one-shot Sienna Rhee at range 3 from full health. And then I did it 2 turns in a row after that. We sat down, broke out the math on probability calculator, and the first 2 each had a 92% chance to work that way. The last one was a bit less than that because Jam was dead and I didn't have the spare die. It came out to about a 70% chance odds of one-shotting an interceptor 3 turns in a row. It was more likely than not that that would be the occurrence. And that was just a god no from both of us. That was just way too much power. My opponent could not participate in the objectives at all because they had to have tokens if they wanted to have a ship have any chance to live. Anything untokened died instantly. So that's why you see some of the stuff like Dash doesn't have his title for a very good reason.
So to just a little bit of context for that, because Joel was one of our playtesters. When you have to remember here that AMG has errated the Dash title, so the old Dash title, where he could just go over asteroids, didn't exist anymore. The new one adds a red dice. So to give you an idea of playtesting, sometimes when you throw things into playtesting and you go, oh, this should be fine, and realize, no, okay, we made a super laser. We basically made the Death Star. Dash had access to a 6 dice cannon basically every turn. Combine that with Janors, there was a lot of really nasty combinations in Rebels. To give you a bit of context on this and where Dash is at right now, he is not able to use that title. That is the reason. So if a lot of people are saying, oh, why doesn't Dash have access to the title? This is the reason. We wanted to do that. We're trying to fit with theme and fluff wherever we can. However, there are some things that shouldn't be allowed to be easily accessible in the game. The flip side of that, and when you think of, because Dash is still allowed, and you can still do the 6 dice banger with Jan, but you are using over half of your list to do that. So if you go ahead and play that, then you can. But if you lose him, you're probably going to lose the game. Similar thing with Maui, just pointing out there, is the new Dash does still have access to the title because he had 1 less red dice in the first place. So the new Dash works with the title as it was intended by the new Dash, and we had to balance out the old one. So yeah, that's why you can still have multiple versions of Dash. You can fly the old Dash, you can fly the new Dash, you can fly the standard Dash. It's just worth remembering why some things may have lost or gained an upgrade. Actually, that's a really good opportunity while we're at it, just to mention some things have lost or gained an upgrade as well. Before we go on to one more question, I just want to address intimidation. I want to address the energy shells, and I want to address stealth device as 3 of those things. Intimidation spammed on generics was going to be a problem. There was no points value that we could put it at that it wouldn't be a problem. So we've changed it and are trying to get it to the point where it does feel thematic of having something like Arvel being intimidating, flying at your face in a Star Destroyer. So we've restricted that to named pilots only because that does reduce the amount of spammability you can get from that upgrade. The energy shell charges, I know a lot of people are saying, but droids are bad. Why worry about charges? Why worry about them having the calculations? We've done a lot of testing on this, and we had a look and we saw that if you give droids the access to have both a long-range firepower and then a crack shot following up with Seer, which they're almost guaranteed because they have that double calculate every single turn, it was super, super good. It was too worrisome. So that's why we changed that. And finally, some of your small Jedi with stealth devices, we like you being able to kill stuff, and thought it was probably quite boring if Jedi were running around with stealth devices again. So that's why it's mediumship only. And yes, that does mean you can take Boba with a stealth device. Go mad. I'm curious to see what happens.
It doesn't sound good, but it does. I mean, I think at first it does. And they're like, you're probably going to take that damage immediately. At least my luck, I blank out first turn every time on defense with Boba, right? So, again, I appreciate you, Ollie, the moderators doing an awesome job in the chat. But if you have something that you feel like we have missed that you asked earlier, it will be difficult for us to be able to track everything. So if you definitely have a pressing question, and you can definitely request to speak here, where we won't bite, I promise. All right, so we got Taylor by Night's got a question or comments. Gonna invite Taylor to join.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Awesome. I only briefly was able to look at the points, but it kind of feels like you're trying to reduce the average ship count from what is currently 5 down to maybe 4. Was that kind of a consideration that you took in, making a lot of the pilots more expensive?
It's interesting here. So I hadn't specifically looked at ship count. We definitely looked at power level. Obviously, you can definitely see the parallels, right? Is that if we're reducing the power level of the game, then it will probably naturally reduce the ship count. I counter it slightly. We're trying to reduce ship count of certain builds. So in the previous version of the game, with the latest version of AMG points, you can fly 4 or 5 incredibly powerful ships with access to every single modification offensive and defensive that you could ask for. If you want to do that, then yes, we are absolutely going to reduce the power level, because you shouldn't be able to fly that many of those things. And the reason that we wanted to reduce that power level, weirdly, is because we wanted to increase the ship count. So if you have a look at TIE fighter swarms and droid swarms, they completely disappeared from the game, because having a 5-ship list that could do all of those things made a swarm list redundant. It just didn't work anymore. So one of the big things that we started with when we started playtesting, one of the markers that we wanted to hit, is we wanted droids and TIE fighters to be good again. And if that's the case, then you start balancing around those lists, those ships, and you say, okay, how can we bring those back? So hopefully what you should find is that, yes, you will see a reduction in pilots, but you will also see an increase, in certain types of list. Hopefully we've done enough to bring swarms back. So overall, the ship count may drop on average, but I'd love to see a higher ship count lists being properly viable again, instead of everything just like ending up at that 5-ship median. I hope that answers your question. Feel free to chuck a
Yeah,
follow-up in.
no, love it. Thank you so much. That was a great answer.
There you go.
Awesome. Hey, the fact that we don't have 100 people requesting to speak right now means that I think you've done a pretty good job, because it'd be like pitchforks, right, if you had that many people. But the 119 people, that's about 50% of the slated interest as of this morning. So that's awesome. I appreciate you all making the time. For those in the US, happy Labor Day. I know that's technically tomorrow, but a lot of you are having family plans and barbecue plans and all that jazz. So appreciate you carving out a little time in the middle of your day to join us and talk about
there's a
the
couple
points update.
of cool questions that I just saw in the chat as well, that while we're waiting for more people to raise hands and other bits. Two things. One is with Suntir and the configs. So there's a couple of ships where we changed the configs on. Suntir is one of them. He no longer has the config. So you are absolutely able to fly a load of intuitive interceptors and Suntir Fel with his access to boost and barrel roll. That was the intent of us doing that. Suntir Fel, we feel, should be flown like the Ace of Legend as he is, with access to his boost and barrel roll after he moves. That's the 4-point version. If you would like access to a Suntir that can boost and barrel roll before he moves, then you do have that 5-point version available as well. The other thing, there is a couple of things that people may have noticed in terms of the points documents here, where we haven't changed things. For example, Janors in the Moldy Crow has 0 loadout, but still has access to all of her slots. That's purely a exercise in time saving. We have looked at every single ship in the game and moved their values up and down. If we were to take that extra time, realistically, if we were to ask our wonderful list builders to take that extra time, it would have taken so much longer to get everything right. So we don't want to spend time changing something that might just change again in the future. So bear with us. And we do appreciate that the other way as well. Ships now have gained a lot of loadout and don't have enough slots to fill it in certain cases. We know. We understand that, and please don't feel like we're making fun of you by having certain ships like the Nantex is a good example. There are certain Nantex with not that many upgrade slots, but a lot of opportunity to spend them. We wanted to give you as many options as possible in terms of having expensive talents if you want them, but if you just want to run them cheaper, you can run them cheaper. So I hope that doesn't affect too many things. The other thing that I've seen mentioned a lot is the Wartime Y-Wing. The Wartime Y-Wing and the 4-pointers versus the 3-pointers. We have removed the config slot from the 3-pointers, so they're not allowed to take the wartime loadout anymore, so that you don't have beefy Y-Wings running around at 3 points.
So mention about the Mandalorian. I haven't seen the change to the Mando. What happened with the Mandalorian? Did he get increased?
He gets toys. He is now 7 and 25, including access to a stealth device. That is a very scary ship. If anyone wants to try him at 7, he is very mean. We wanted Mando to feel powerful. He's an incredibly cool pilot, and we do like fluff here. So, yeah, making him 7 and giving him 25 loadout. I mean, why not?
Plus a free illicit,
he was 6 in the recent update with only 12, and no one bothered using him. So we thought, you know what? Let's have some toys. Similar thing with Boba. We could have made Boba really, really expensive and given him all his toys, but we wanted to see what would happen if we took away the crew and kept him at 8. you can still take handgunner on him. We think he's good still. Same thing with those standard loadouts. Just because we've nerfed something doesn't mean it's bad.
I don't have a mic, so I won't do it. Well, you can definitely ask if you don't have. You can still ask questions in the chat. It's just for those that had pressing questions. Just want to make sure we get as many as possible. Is there any concern about him not being used at 7? So that's the interesting thing, is that I personally, I have my own opinions. Like, I thought Mando, the chassis is the only thing that holds Mando back, just in terms of the dial. It's going to be interesting with that loadout and the free illicit, though. I think you can definitely do a lot of mean things, but it's tough. It makes you. But the point of this, right, is to have to make decisions and sacrifices and compromises with your list building instead of just auto including half of your list and being like, done.
Yeah.
That's make list building great again.
Yeah. And there are certain things where you have to have a look at ships and say, okay, these don't exist in a vacuum. And the Bo-Katan versus the Ezra Bridger Gauntlet is another good example of that. If you have a look at droids and what you can do when you start to stack crew and everything else on top of each other, they can get really, really nasty. And also, we just wanted to be careful with certain combinations. There was a couple of, for Separatists is a good example, there was a couple of really nasty combos with Grievous, with some of the Nantex, with the Infiltrators, because you can get some super cheap Infiltrators, and having a lot of very, very scary big ships flying around. So, again, Bo-Katan isn't terrible. She's still fairly good. She's a 6-point gauntlet, and that bearing in mind, we have, again, adjusted the power level up. So stuff that stayed about where it was is actually possibly really good if we haven't changed it. So, give it a go. See how it goes.
Give it a go. Theme of the day. Give it a go. Tom, I thought I'd see you request to speak sooner.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tom. Yes.
Oh, marvelous. So I've not really looked beyond the Resistance, but I've heard from a number of people that there are only, is it Scum, CIS, and Imperials that have 2-point ships now?
Yep.
Could you talk us through some of the design philosophy around why you chose to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really important one as well. I probably should have hit that at the beginning, so thank you for that. So in terms of the ideas of this, and this is a really, really good opportunity to call out one of the changes that was in Nick's press release about the detriment of not building to 20, is we have asked people to see how that goes if you remove that. So the whole idea here is you can now build a 19-point list if you want to, and it's not going to cost you not going to give your opponent an immediate squad point in our beta test. The reason that we wanted to try this out is when we had a look at the power level of the game that we wanted and had a look at certain factions, and we thought, okay, in this version of the game, if we make that 2 points, is that going to be in every single list? And you've seen it with Sabine. If you give the Rebels a 2-point Sabine named TIE Fighter, okay, you gave her access to Beskar. My question to the playtesters and to the points team was, if I remove Beskar from Sabine Wren, does everyone still put her in her list? And the answer was yes. Everyone would take the 2-point TIE Fighter. So is it a choice if it's in every single list? That was the question, and that was the answer. So we said, okay, we can't make Sabine 2 points. Okay, what about Zeb? Because Zeb's the worst TIE Fighter. But then you realize that, Zeb's ability means that in salvage, he basically never drops the crate because he cancels the crit first. So barring a terrible, terrible situation, Zeb will just carry a crate until he dies. And again, that's obnoxious. So that's not going to be 2 points. We can't make that thing 2 points. So we had a look across the rest of Rebels and we went, okay, Z95s, let's make a generic Z 2 points. And then we talked to a load of the old playtesters under AMG, because don't worry, we have a load of them on the team, and we also have a load of them just around that we've asked questions to. And they said, well, the 2-point Z was a massive problem when we tested this for AMG. So we go, okay, can't do that as well. So just doesn't look like the Rebels can have a 2-pointer based around that. So that was our thought process, and that was why we've gone, okay, let's see what happens. And a big thing at the top of the list was asking our playtesters, please, please, please tell us, does this make you incredibly sad? Does this basically ruin everyone's day by not allowing List to take 2-pointers? And for the first few days, everyone was really unhappy. And we forced them to take a bit more time. And actually, by the end of it, they thought, no, this is actually really cool because it's forcing us to think more about how we put our list together. So yes, it's annoying. And I get it. It's not easy to build a list without a 2-pointer there because that's how even numbers work and it makes it nice. But that was the reason behind it. And we think it's worked pretty well. So I hope you can appreciate that and hope you come to enjoy it as well.
Something about 2.3 agility as well when you spend a lot of time trying to focus fire something and you finally do it, which you might be a strategic error, right? But you finally do it and you get 2 points. It can feel a certain type
also,
of way.
sorry for those Americans. Should I say Z95?
Zed, you could.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people from across the pond here, right, in the chat, like Tom, Cass. I do want to give a shout out to, I mean, obviously everybody coming together to work on this, but your team, Ollie, is comprised of, and if I miss anybody, let me know. But Greg Cash from Nickel City XWing, he put together those awesome, very creative points teasers as videos in tandem with another one of your teammates, squad mates, Dale Cromwell from Rogue Outpost. He put the artwork together that you see of those characters in the teasers. And then you have Catherine Naxera in your group as well. And I feel like I'm missing somebody. Am I missing anyone else besides you?
So we've got Greg, we've got Kat, we've got Dale, we've got myself. That is the 4-person points team. I say 4-person points team. Everyone has been helping. Like there is a lot of people in the XWA, and actually, good opportunity. There was a question up above a long way about how the different teams interact in the XWA. We are the points team left to our own devices, but we will constantly be asking the rules team questions as we're going through. We'll be asking the design team questions, and I'm sure as the epic points are going through them, the design team will also be coming to us and asking questions about XYZ. So we are integrated. We are working together, even though we get our own separate section to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, and then Flipster, of course, helped put together the points document, the PDF, which is just, it looks so good. I know that Martin Liu from my team, the PR team, helped just kind of spot check it a little bit, I think, at the end. But we appreciate the feedback. A lot of you seem to like the legibility and the accessibility of the document and seeing what's changed. And obviously that was intentional. We wanted to make it look as clean and polished as possible so you could just look at it and understand it right away. And then Andre Lynn from Launch Bay and Barathos from Yasby working on the builders. Go ahead, Ollie. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think Nick's being very, very modest here. The level of professionalism that these things have, he puts us through our paces. We are not allowed to put anything out that looks cruddy. Nick does an incredible job. So thank you to the PR team for smoothing over the rough edges. If we've got time for another question, I pulled a really, really interesting one out of the chat.
Yeah, of course. I'll respond since my team was deliberately attacked by Ollie there. I'm just kidding. I appreciate that. Jason Grimwolf from GSP helped with a lot of the proofreading to make the less wordy and the grammar less bad. Martin Liu is the one that has helped us with all our branding and updating our logo. Of course, John Foyt designed the logo. A lot of people to shout out. I just want to make sure they get a shout out in general. But yeah, go ahead, Ollie.
No worries. I mean, I can hit one of them because I already kind of hit it. Generally, pilots, we tried to give pilots back the titles that they needed. For example, 066 now has access to the title again because he always had it. He flew that ship. The one that I wanted to pick out from Ant-Man on the idea of choices and players wanting the option to fly a ship that, say for example, Suntir. I imagine there's a load of people who want to fly Suntir at 5 points with lots of loadout. Couple of interesting things for that in the future, not for now. I would love in the future to have multiple versions of the same pilot with different loadout and different squad points. I think that would be amazing. I would love to do it. It's definitely on the cards as something that I want to try. Whether or not it will happen, who knows? But that's really cool. Also, in the future, it allows us to make some really interesting changes and updates, because if every 4 to 6 months, say, we just went, okay, this pilot now has one more squad point and a load of loadout. See how he goes now. See how they go now. That's also a really interesting button for us to press in balancing.
Gonna give you all a chance to keep asking questions. Raise your hand if you want to jump on and speak to us. I'm gonna pull up a doc really quick on my end.
Speaking is scary, so I appreciate that. Yeah, the just while Nick is doing that, again, super big shout out to Dale, especially for the art, but Greg for just the amount of time. And I'm really curious, like, for those of you who know Catherine, apologize. Catherine really is the numbers brain. Like, I'm reasonable at maths. She has a lot of fun formulas and stuff that is going to be kicking in the future. And also keep an eye open in terms of teasers that we're allowed to drop. Keep an eye open for the future for some really, really cool tournament stuff that will be coming your way.
There's a lot of reasons to be excited there's a multitude of reasons to be excited. And we're putting in a lot of effort to just be as encompassing and as inclusive as possible when it comes to getting more people to play, to come back, to join, to continue playing X-Wing. This is the first step. It's going to be a longer road, and change is always scary. And JJ mentioned that in the chat, but this is change, not for the sake of change, but change for the betterment of moving forward and being able to get this game to a sustainable point where we're growing X-Wing, right? It had been stunted deliberately for too long, and here we are. I just wanted to, you guys should be able to see this, but some of you might have missed because there was a lot going on, but this is awesome. So Fernando Carabus, another member of the PR team, put this nice document together. We basically had streamers from XWA sign up to stream XWA beta points games this coming week, starting with tomorrow. My team 312, featuring Joel, who was just on here, who was a playtester in person. We're streaming XWA points games, 4 of them tomorrow. So if anyone's around during Labor Day and wants to pop in, we'll be streaming most of the day tomorrow, and then you can see Greg at NCX, Sith Takers, GSP, Firecast Focus are also streaming throughout the week. Now, if you all plan on streaming and want people to watch the new beta points in action, there is a channel that we have added under the XWA X-Wing Alliance section called XWA Beta Point Stream Promotions or Promos. You can post a link to your stream in there as long as you're streaming XWA points games, TTS or in person. That's awesome. We want you to be able to get as many people to support you. So again, shouting out those streamers in the XWA announcement channel, as well as that stream promo channel. The links to these streams are there that are featured on the screen here, so you can go and find them easily. Wanted to
there's a couple of questions in here that about the philosophy kind of behind the points. Something that we noticed, I mean, to give you an idea of my history, I've been playing this game since 2014, so 2 years after it dropped. It's over 10 years now. A lot of the time, indirect damage is one of the things that makes people really, really angry. So the question was from Hamdam Chua. I think that's the way I'm going to say your username, so let's go with it. Is there a thing on point loading, so making them expensive, of munitions and bombs? It feels like you're encouraging primary attacks. We felt like munitions have been incredibly effective for a long time. That kind of goes alongside the free loadout that a lot of people got. So we wanted to bring that a little bit more back into line with how effective some of these things were, like proton torpedoes, mag pulse, and everything else. They have the opportunity to feel really bad when spammed. So we thought, okay, again, pilots can use them, but they're a bit more expensive. Similar thing with bombs. We wanted to make sure that the bombs were well balanced. And as Extended was coming back and as the generics were coming back, there have been some metas in the past where people didn't bother shooting anything. They just won the game by bombing. And I think actually you can do that right now. With our points changes, there are bombing lists that are viable and possibly very scary. If anything, I was lighter on them than I could have been. So if you like your bombs, have a go. I think you'll find that maybe these could be a little bit terrifying. If you're looking at chassis to do it, the Hyena Bomber and the FO Bomber are both much cheaper than they used to be and possibly terrifying. So yeah, that's another one. Another thing for the future, Talking Dog, extended lists and limited lists and limited and everything else. Tips on ships and everything else, and like limiting the amount of upgrades that you can take. I would love to play with that. It's something that actually really gave us issues in our building that we didn't want to errata or anything. And what you'll notice actually is we haven't changed any cards. Even those of you complaining that intimidation is now large named ship only. We've only changed these things on the point sheets. We haven't changed them on the cards. It's just the requirement that you need on the point sheet. So yes, we've avoided doing errata because this isn't our remit. These are beta points. There are still GTs going on. We want you to go to the GTs, please. And I think hopefully after a breath of fresh air, after a breath of fresh air, I actually am hoping that there's going to be a bit more of a surge back to some of the later GTs, as it's nice to play some of the cheaper stuff again that you can fit on the table. So that is my hope in that regard.
Yeah, just to address GTs, I feel like as the PR guy, it's important to acknowledge the fact that TOs, who are the people who volunteer their time and effort and stress out about putting together X-Wing events, are the people that are putting together GTs and running them. And even though they might be using points that you find stale, it is important to acknowledge the importance of being able to go to a GT if you can. There's a lot of community, aspects of playing at a GT besides just playing X-Wing, being with the community and your friends and prizes. And also X-Wing's still fun. Points might feel stale with AMG points, but I just want to acknowledge that it is important to make sure that TOs feel like, hey, X-Wing is still alive, because their perception versus our perception right now is very different. We're all here. We know X-Wing is kicking and things are really exciting. Some TOs, a lot of them hear about XWA, but they might think that it's an obstruction based on just kind of how awkward current events are with running and phasing out official events. So just want, to let you all know, I'm not saying you need to go to a GT, but we encourage those who can, and we're planning to still go, because turnout does have a greater implication beyond just AMG walking away from official support. It's for our sustainability as well that we support tournament organizers.
Yeah, 100%.
If that makes sense.
And it's also not just for TOs, but also for those running the events, maybe some of those cons and everything else. The more boots on the ground that we can get to these, the better. So yeah, it's super excited to see more people at more events, and I'm hoping that this is going to get more people in stores and playing on the table again, which would be fantastic.
Let's see, Atreides, I will invite you to jump on.
Ooh,
First,
Go ahead.
Thank you both. Like, you turned it around really fast. Everything. So did y'all have, like, for doing it so fast? Like, did you tell your testers, look for this faction identity? Like, did you want certain factions to be swarm factions, certain factions to be, to be trickery? Like, there was always a discussion of, is separatist the trickery or is scum? Like, there was that fighting. So did y'all go into that with that, like, knowledge to shoe line some factions into identities?
So the whole idea of that going into the points was, absolutely. We wanted to bring back some of that faction identity. But importantly, I think factions can have multiple identities. For example, if you have a look at Imperials, Imperials have both been known as the Swarm faction and also as the Aces faction at different points in the past. And we wanted to bring back those as options. We wanted you to be able to do that with Imperials. Looking at stuff like Separatists and stuff like Scum, we had a look at it and go, okay, so what were previous identities of those factions in the past that could be really cool? We went into the initial points changes where we as a team were doing the points before that went to playtesting, and we sat down and we went, okay, how do we make that happen? What do these points look like when Empire are good again? And as I mentioned earlier, that's why we set our benchmarking around certain lists in certain squads. So you can say, okay, we want Imperials to be a thing again with TIE fighters, so this needs to be reasonable, this needs to be taken. Then when we went to playtesting, we had our initial worries and we had our initial aims of, okay, we'd love you to be testing some of these things, but also we want you to just have fun. And we tried to build a small playtesting team that we knew could turn around things faster. And that was the reason why I would have loved to have all of you involved in playtesting. Like, the whole idea of playtesting from this point forwards is going to be open. There is going to be a playtesting form that you can all fill in. But we needed a group that could turn things around quickly. And in a month, we did 29 individual revisions of these points. We went fast. We went really fast. And yeah, go on.
No, I'm one of the ones that first looked at it and like, oh, half my stuff is gone, or not there. And then I just played a game, and then it's Greg's fault, but it was fun.
Yeah,
what my list I could build was fun.
I wanted to shout out to yourself specifically because I know that we've been talking about, and to those of you that don't know, I played Atreides in my 2019 Worlds run, and it was amazing. And the man, he loves his Nantex, and I wanted to make Nantex viable without making them unfair and feel bad. So I've had to limit Nantex to only 2 copies of Ensnare at the moment. When we have more time to test, Nantex is one of those ships that I want to come back to. I want to see if it's possible to get that multiple.
I took it as a personal attack that the Aces were 9 points, 1 point away from taking Ensnare.
Yeah, that was obviously intentional.
Yeah.
At the moment,
attacks.
we're limiting it to 2 Ensnare copies. I want to see in the future what happens if you're allowed a 4 Ensnare Nantex list with maybe a droid. There are some things that I would love to test. But again, in the interest of time and making sure that nothing is just horrendous at launch, we went with that. So we hope that you can at least fly some Nantex and enjoy that.
Fair. Thank you for the answer.
Yeah, of course. All right, everyone. We're getting close to last call in terms of questions. I gotta encourage you, if you can, to jump on and chat with us if you'd like. It kind of helps keep that panel vibe going. I appreciate everyone who has jumped on and chatted with us and asked questions. These are great questions. It's always nice, I think, when you get a little bit of context behind certain changes. You see something and you had been enjoyed playing, and then it's different, and maybe you feel, oh, I can't play this anymore. It went up. Just because something goes up a point doesn't mean it's like unplayable. Sometimes it's just about shifting the curve of balance and just getting something in a better place or a different place, right? And so these kind of conversations, and I encourage you all, if you haven't gone on xwing.life/resources/points, you can read the patch notes, which give a lot of good context at a high level about why, like the what and the why, without being too detailed. That's an important read as well, which again, we haven't really been afforded the luxury of having that kind of exposure to context since the FFG era, right? This isn't an attack on AMG, just kind of a fact. The system and process shifted with points changes, and we want to try to continue to over communicate. I know it's funny, Ollie, you mentioned, well, some people might not have seen as much from us the last couple of months. Like, man, on the PR side, I beg to differ. We've been posting announcements constantly, but that's a good thing, because we get to be transparent and give people updates as things come up. You mentioned playtesting. We did just elect Isofane to be the playtest lead. There will be an announcement from PR on that in the next few weeks, and there will be an update on the playtesting process very soon as well. So we do want this to be an all-inclusive, as wide of a community effort as possible, because again, it is a points beta. This will help inform bigger future changes to the design and balancing of the game, right?
Yeah. Couple more beats that I realize I missed a very important one. They are beta points for a reason. We don't know when the next update of these will be. If my guess would be we are going to touch these, I don't think we've done a perfect job. I think we've done a good job. I'm really happy with these. I would expect at some point between now and Adepticon to have to come back to these and go, all right, let's maybe change 1 or 2 bits. What I would like to see is I would like to see the effect of letting people have some time to counter things, because I think that is one of the things that I have planned into these points is you now have a vast amount of stuff to change. And if one list suddenly becomes good, maybe droid swarms are everywhere. Well, hey, trajectory simulator's back. Lob some of that bomb in their faces and see what happens. So I'm curious about that. The other final thing, because I haven't mentioned it yet, I'm going to confirm it. I'm saying it here. The hyperspace ring is still not allowed in standard play. Sorry if anyone got that impression. It is not allowed in standard play. That's the other thing.
Can you talk about like people are gonna be like, well, now I'm confused because there's extended options and you're saying standard play. Like you're saying that you can take what exists in standard and play it with these points. You know what I mean? Where the confusion might be. Right. But
yeah.
You say
sorry,
standard
apologies.
play.
When I say,
you mean by
when
standard
I say
play,
standard play,
you probably don't mean standard. Yeah, you don't need standard.
Yeah. So I don't mean standard. I don't mean extended. I mean everything that is in the normal version of the game. We're not talking about Epic. The hyperspace ring was made for Epic. That was the very, very large version of the game, played on a 6x3 mat. The 3x3 mat version that we've been playing for years, that is what's the standard version. So not using standard or extended points, just using whatever points you see fit, and that's it.
Well, yes, I know that when we say standard, obviously I get you now. I was like, wait a minute, but you didn't mean it like that. So good to clarify. Yes, this is being recorded. Hello mom, hi YouTube. It will be posted on the 312 Squadron YouTube channel later today. I'll share it with you all in the I'll post it in the XWA announcement channel. If you're wondering like, oh, what gives you the right to post on 312? We don't have an XWA YouTube channel. And I've already been making videos about XWA on behalf of XWA on 312. So, this is just an evil ploy to get you to go to my channel because it's all self-serving, yada, yada. And we're, streaming tomorrow as well. So, that's what I get out of this. I don't get paid, but I get exposure bucks working in the film industry and video industry. That's what a lot of people get. Instead of money, they get exposure. So I am taking all that exposure and running with it for sure. So, again, sharing all the streams coming up this week. Be sure to post your own in the promo channel. Last call though for questions. Yeah, it's over for me. It's over here, wherever it is for you all. Oh, I know it's like all over. You're just pointing. You're just pointing at the ceiling. Yeah, it's like whatever. I'd like to pay my rent and exposure. I know. I've tried. To no avail. All right, everyone.
I think we're good.
I think we're good. So again, please support everyone streaming this coming week and beyond with XWA points. Support your local TOs, your GTs, of course, because it's important to nurture TO involvement with XWA moving forward. And be patient, give it a shot, give it a test. These are beta points. Things are subject to change. These aren't perfect, but we're really happy with what we have so far. And I just want to thank you all for being here, for giving it a go, as Ollie would say, and be sure to give it a go on the table and try things out and see how it feels. And we will keep an ear open.
Go check out Nova. The final is just about to start. So go give them some love on Twitch.
Indeed. All right, that is going to conclude our stage. We will have future stages with more announcements and conversations. Thank you all. Thank you, Ollie, for being here. Thank you to the moderators for helping in the chat.